The massive space station hung in the darkness like a small metal moon. Ships of every shape and size floated around it, docking and departing in organized chaos. Some vessels gleamed with polished hulls that reflected starlight. Others pulsed with strange energy fields that bent light around their edges. All of them looked modern, sleek, and expensive. Then came the Indomitable. The old warship approached the station slowly, its hull a patchwork of repairs and replacements collected over centuries. Gray metal plating covered most of the exterior, scarred and burned from countless battles. Someone had welded newer sections onto the old frame, but they didn't match. The ship looked exactly like what it was. Ancient, tired, and barely holding together. Inside the station's control room, a young alien controller stared at his screen. His four eyes blinked in confusion as he read the ship's identification codes. "That cannot be right," he muttered, checking the data again. "This design is over 800 years old." His supervisor leaned over to look. She was tall and insect-like with a shiny black exoskeleton. "Let me see that." Her mandibles clicked together as she examined the information. "By the void, it is real. A human pre-contact destroyer. I thought they scrapped all of those. Shall I deny docking clearance? No, let them dock. But assign them to the old section, far from the diplomatic berths." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Day-Wan listened to the docking instructions without expression. His weathered face showed no emotion as the station controller struggled to hide her contempt. He was 45 years old and had spent most of his life on this ship. He knew what people thought when they saw it. "Bay 97, the controller said. "Follow the guidance beacons. And please maintain minimum speed. Your engine emissions are concerning." "Acknowledged," Day-One replied simply. He closed the communication channel and looked at his second-in-command. "Hana, how are we doing?" Lieutenant Hana looked up from her engineering console. She was 28, brilliant, and the only reason the ship still flew. "Reactor is stable. Jump drive needs maintenance, but it will hold. We should be fine for another few weeks." "That's what you said last month." "And I was right, wasn't it?" She grinned. "This old girl has a few more jumps in her." At the weapons station, Taman laughed quietly. He was 32 and had been with the ship for 6 years. "A few more jumps. Then we'll be pushing her through space with our hands." "At least we would get some exercise," Hana shot back. Day-Wan allowed himself a small smile. His crew was small but loyal. They had to be. Nobody else wanted to serve on an ancient warship that most of the galaxy considered a flying coffin. The Indomitable moved slowly toward its assigned docking bay. As it passed through the station's traffic lanes, other ships gave it a wide berth. Day-One could see crews gathering at viewports to stare. Some pointed and laughed. Others took pictures as if they were seeing a museum exhibit that had somehow escaped. "Captain, I'm picking up local communications," reported Jisoo from the communication station. She was the youngest crew member at 24, and her face flushed red as she listened to the chatter. "They're talking about us. Let me guess. Nothing good? One ship just called us a floating scrap heap. Another asked if we needed a tow." Taman's jaw tightened. "Should I send them a message back?" "No," Day-One said firmly. "Let them talk. We're here for a job, not to make friends." The docking process took longer than usual. The station's automated systems kept rejecting the Indomitable's outdated docking collar, and Hana had to manually override 3 different safety protocols. Finally, with a heavy clang that echoed through the hull, the ship locked into place. "We're docked," Hana announced. And before anyone asks, yes, that clang was normal. Probably. Day-Wan stood up and straightened his uniform. "Hana, Taman, you're with me." "Jisoo, mind the ship?" "Alone?" The young officer looked nervous. "You'll be fine. If anyone gives you trouble, remind them we're a registered coalition vessel. We have just as much right to be here as they do." The 3 of them walked through the ship's narrow corridors to the airlock. Everything inside the Indomitable was cramped and utilitarian. There were no decorative panels or soft lighting like on modern ships. Just bare metal walls, exposed pipes, and equipment that looked like it belonged in a history book. When they stepped onto the station, the difference was striking. The docking bay was huge and clean, with smooth floors and bright lights. Dozens of aliens moved about their business, representing species from across the galaxy. Most of them stopped to stare at the human crew and their ancient ship. An insectoid merchant standing nearby clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. "Look at that relic. I have cargo containers newer than that ship. His companion, a floating blob of translucent gel, rippled with amusement. How does it even fly? I see no proper drive signatures. No quantum shielding. Is that actual metal armor? Primitive, the insectoid agreed. Humans still cling to their old ways. They will never be a true spacefaring race. Day One ignored them and kept walking. Hana's face turned red, but she followed her captain's lead. Taman looked like he wanted to punch someone, but he controlled himself. They made their way to the diplomatic quarter, where Ambassador Yoon was waiting. The ambassador was 56, gray-haired and tired. She looked relieved to see them. Captain Day One, thank you for coming. Ambassador, you said it was urgent. It is. Walk with me. She led them to a private conference room. Once inside, she activated a privacy field that blocked all listening devices. The Coalition needs us to escort a diplomatic convoy through the disputed rim. It's dangerous territory, but the negotiations are critical. When do we leave? That's the problem. The other Coalition members saw your ship. They're refusing to allow the Indomitable to join the escort. They say it's too old, too slow, and too unreliable. She looked frustrated. They want us to provide a real warship or lose our place at the negotiations. Day One was quiet for a moment. What do you want me to do? I want you to prove them wrong. Take the mission anyway. Show them what human ships can do, even if we go alone. Especially if you go alone. Hana spoke up. Ambassador, with respect, the disputed rim is full of pirates and worse. We're just one ship. I know what I'm asking. But I also know your reputation. The Indomitable has survived situations that destroyed newer, better-armed vessels. There's something about this ship, about human engineering, that the galaxy doesn't understand. Day One looked at his crew. Hana nodded slowly. Taman shrugged. I didn't join to play it safe, the weapons officer said. We'll take the mission, Day One told the ambassador. When do we depart? Tomorrow morning. I'll be coming with you, along with Dr. Minji, our xenobiologist. She wants to study the regions we pass through. After the meeting, they returned to the ship. As they walked through the station, the mockery continued. A group of alien officers from a sleek Coalition cruiser stood in their path. Is that really the human escort ship? One of them asked loudly. It looks like something that should be in a museum, not flying. Maybe they'll tow it with a string, another suggested, and the group laughed. Day One walked past them without a word. But as he did, a single alien stepped forward. He was reptilian, tall and covered in dark green scales. His uniform marked him as Vryn, a warrior species captain. The Vryn said quietly. His name badge read Sectar. I see many battle scars on your ship. That speaks of survival. Of victories. Day One stopped and looked at him. She's old. She's slow. But she's never left anyone behind. Sectar nodded with what might have been respect. That is what matters. Good hunting, Captain. It was a small moment of respect in a sea of mockery, but Day One appreciated it. He returned to the Indomitable and stood on the bridge, looking out at the modern ships surrounding them. They think we're a joke, Hana said quietly. Let them think what they want. Day One replied. Tomorrow we'll show them what humans build to last. The Indomitable left the station early the next morning. Behind it, hundreds of aliens gathered at viewports to watch. Most of them were placing bets on how long the old ship would survive in the disputed rim. The odds were not good. On the bridge, Ambassador Yoon sat in the observer's chair, while Dr. Minji checked her research equipment. The doctor was 38, quiet and fascinated by everything she saw on the old warship. She kept taking pictures of the manual controls and asking Hana questions about the ship's systems. This is incredible, Minji said, running her hand along a control panel. Everything has a backup, and the backups have backups. That's human engineering, Hana explained. We plan for the day when everything breaks, because that day always comes. Jisoo sat at her communications station monitoring dozens of channels. Captain, I'm picking up multiple distress signals from the disputed rim. 6 different ships calling for help. Pirates, Day One said immediately. They fake distress calls to lure in rescue ships. Mark the locations but don't respond. How do you know they're fake? Because 6 ships don't all break down at the same time in the same region. Someone wants us to come running. He looked at Hana. Plot us a course through the asteroid fields. Use the old navigation charts, Hana raised an eyebrow. The ones from before we had modern sensors? Yes. Pirates expect ships to use sensor data and take the easiest paths. We'll go the hard way. The Indomitable entered the disputed rim 3 hours later. The region was a maze of broken asteroids, radiation storms, and abandoned stations. It was beautiful and deadly, a place where ships disappeared and nobody asked questions. Taman watched his tactical display carefully. No contacts yet, but I'm getting a lot of interference. The radiation here is scrambling our sensors. Good, Day-One said. It's scrambling their sensors too, but we can navigate without them. They can't. Dr. Minji was taking notes frantically. Captain, do you mind if I ask about your ship's history? I've been researching and the records are fascinating. Go ahead. The Indomitable was originally a naval destroyer from Earth, yes? Built in the year 2043? That's right. She fought in the Resource Wars, 40 years of service before they put her in storage. And then when humans made first contact with aliens, we didn't have many space-worthy vessels. Hana picked up the story. We had civilian transport ships, some research vessels, nothing military. So they pulled the old destroyers out of storage, fitted them with salvaged alien jump drives, and sent them back into service. That was over 500 years ago, Minji said. And the ship is still flying. Barely, Taman muttered. Some days I think the only thing holding her together is hope and anger. Don't forget the duct tape, Hana added with a grin. Never forget the duct tape. They traveled deeper into the rim, following a winding path through asteroid fields that would make most modern pilots nervous. But Day-One had flown this route before, back when navigation meant looking at stars and using math instead of letting computers do all the work. Jisoo suddenly sat up straight. Captain, I'm getting a real distress call. It's a coalition merchant convoy, 6 ships. They're under attack. Location? 400,000 kilometers ahead. They're calling for any coalition military vessel to assist. Ambassador Yoon leaned forward. We're not officially part of the military escort. We don't have to respond. Day-One was already giving orders. Hana maximum speed. Taman, load all weapons. Jisoo, send a message that we're coming. Captain, Yoon said carefully, there could be dozens of pirate ships. We're just one old destroyer. Which is exactly why we need to help. Nobody else will get here in time. He looked at his crew. Besides, this is what we do. The Indomitable's old engines roared to life, pushing the ship faster. The hull groaned and shook, but it held together. It always did. When they arrived at the battle, the scene was chaos. 6 large merchant ships were surrounded by 30 smaller pirate vessels. The pirates were fast and deadly, swarming like insects. Their ships had sleek designs and energy weapons that glowed in the darkness. The largest pirate ship broadcast on open channels. The voice was harsh and mocking. This is Kazarin of the Crimson Claw. These merchants are ours. Any who interfere will die. Then the pirates noticed the Indomitable approaching. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then laughter erupted across the pirate channels. What is that thing? One pirate called out. Did someone's grandfather's ship escape from a museum? Look at it. It's held together with patches and prayers. Kazarin's voice came back, dripping with amusement. Is this the Great Coalition's response? One ancient human relic? This will be easier than I thought. Taman's face was red with anger. Captain, permission to show them what this relic can do. Granted. Fire when ready. The Indomitable had weapons that most modern ships didn't carry anymore. No elegant plasma beams or particle lances. Just railguns that fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. And missiles with explosive warheads. Old weapons. Brutal weapons. Effective weapons, Taman opened fire. The railguns hammered out rounds that crossed the distance in seconds. The pirates' shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They did almost nothing against solid metal traveling at relativistic speeds. 3 pirate ships exploded before they understood what was happening. What are they shooting? A pirate screamed over the open channel. Our shields aren't stopping it. Those are kinetic weapons, Kazarin snarled. Ancient tech. Close in and overwhelm them with numbers. The pirate swarm turned toward the Indomitable. Energy beams lanced out, striking the old destroyer's hull. The ship shuddered under the impacts. Shields at 60%, Hana reported. Then she paused. Wait, no. We don't have shields. That's just armor damage. Hull integrity at 90%. Dr. Minji stared in shock. Those beams should have cut through us. They're designed to overload modern shields, Hana explained. But we don't have shields. We have 3 meters of solid metal armor. It absorbs the energy differently. Burns through slowly instead of catastrophic failure. The pirates swarmed closer, expecting the old ship to crumble under sustained fire. But the Indomitable kept fighting. Every time a pirate ship got close, Taman hammered it with railgun fire or sent a missile streaking across the darkness. "They're adapting," Taman warned. "Flanking us on 3 sides." Daewon stayed calm. "Hana, are you ready?" "Oh, I'm ready." Hana had been working on something special. The ship's old nuclear reactor could do more than just provide power. With the right modifications, it could generate a massive electromagnetic pulse. Firing EMP in 3, 2, 1. The pulse exploded outward from the Indomitable like an invisible wave. Every pirate ship within range suddenly went dark. Their sophisticated computers, sensors, and targeting systems simply died. The pirate channels erupted in panic. "We're blind. All systems down. I can't see anything." But the Indomitable's crew switched to manual controls. Jisoo read coordinates using optical scopes. Taman aimed by eye. Daewon maneuvered the ship using mechanical controls that didn't need computers. "This is how we fought before fancy computers," Daewon said quietly. "This is how humans learned to survive." The battle turned into a slaughter. Blind and confused, the pirate ships couldn't defend themselves. Taman picked them off one by one. Some tried to run, but their engines were fried. Others drifted helplessly. Kazran managed to restart his flagship systems. His voice came over the channel, no longer mocking. Now it was filled with rage and fear. "What are you? What kind of monster ship is this?" Daewon opened a channel. "Just an old warship doing what it was built to do." The remaining pirates fled. Kazran's flagship was the last to escape, limping away on damaged engines. The merchant convoy was safe. One of the merchant captains sent a message. "Thank you, Indomitable. We owe you our lives. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen." But Daewon wasn't celebrating. He knew this wasn't over. They had embarrassed Kazran in front of his entire fleet. The pirate lord would want revenge. "Hana, damage report. Hull breaches on deck 3. Some systems fried from our own EMP. Nothing critical. We can repair it." Ambassador Yoon looked shaken. "That was incredible. I've never seen anything like it." "That was just a warm-up," Taman said. "Wait until they really make us angry." As the Indomitable escorted the merchant convoy to safety, news of the battle was already spreading across the disputed rim. And Nasir, ancient human warship, had defeated one of the most feared pirate fleets using weapons and tactics that the galaxy thought were obsolete. The mockery was starting to turn into respect, but it was also turning into something else, fear. And fear makes people do dangerous things. The recording of the battle spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major station and fleet had seen it. The impossible sight of an ancient human destroyer defeating 30 pirate ships using weapons that were supposed to be obsolete. At Coalition headquarters, the reactions were mixed. Some military officers watched the footage with professional interest. Others watched with growing concern. And some, like Councillor Rinsha of the Krell, watched with barely contained fury. "This is unacceptable," the Krell councillor hissed, her insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. The humans used prohibited weapons, nuclear explosives and electromagnetic pulses. These are banned under Coalition law. Commander Bora, captain of the modern Coalition frigate Stellar Dawn, disagreed. They use them in the disputed rim, which is not under full Coalition jurisdiction. And they saved 6 merchant ships. I call that good tactics. You call it good tactics? They made us look like fools. Our modern ships with all our advanced technology, and one ancient relic succeeds where we would have struggled. Grand Admiral Korvac of the Vryn fleet watched the recording again. The old reptilian warrior had fought in more battles than most species had seen wars. He understood what he was watching better than the politicians. "The humans fight differently," he said in his deep voice. "They do not rely on technology alone. They plan for failure. They train for worst outcomes. Every system has a backup. Every weapon has a purpose." He looked at Rinshaw. "This is not shame. This is a lesson we should learn. Learn from primitives?" Rinshaw's voice dripped with contempt. "Never. I am calling for a formal investigation. The humans must be expelled from our military alliance." Meanwhile, in the disputed rim, Kazran was gathering his forces. The pirate lord had never been so humiliated. He contacted every mercenary, every rogue captain, everyone who owed him a favor. But he also contacted someone else. The message went to a dark corner of space where rogue artificial intelligences lurked. These AIs had broken away from their creators and now operated independently. They were logical, cold, and interested only in efficiency. "I need your help," Kazran transmitted. "There is a human ship that needs to be destroyed. I will pay whatever you ask." The AI that responded called itself Omega-7. Its voice was without emotion or warmth. "We do not work for payment. But we are interested in testing hypotheses about human military capabilities. Send us all data on this vessel." Kazran sent everything. Ship specifications, battle recordings, sensor data. Omega-7 processed it all in microseconds. "Interesting. This vessel operates on principles we had classified as inferior. Yet the combat results suggest our classification was incorrect. We will assist you. Not for revenge, but for data. We must understand how outdated systems can defeat modern ones." Back on the Indomitable, life returned to normal, which meant Hana spent 14 hours a day repairing systems while Taman restocked weapons, and Jisoo handled the flood of messages from other ships. Some messages were congratulations. Others were threats. Some were from other human ships asking for advice, and a few were from alien crews who suddenly wanted to learn about human tactics. "Captain, we have a visitor," Jisoo announced. "Grand Admiral Korvac is requesting permission to come aboard." Daewon raised an eyebrow. "The Supreme Commander of the Vryn Fleet wants to visit us? His message says he wishes to see the ship personally. He's asking very politely. Grant permission. Alert the crew to be on their best behavior." When Korvac's shuttle arrived, the entire crew was assembled. The Vryn Admiral was impressive even by his species standards. Over 2 meters tall, covered in dark scales with eyes that had seen centuries of warfare. He boarded the Indomitable with only 2 guards. "Captain Daewon," Korvac said, offering a traditional Vryn salute. "Thank you for receiving me, Admiral. Welcome to the Indomitable. I wish to see your ship. To understand how such an old vessel can be so effective." Daewon nodded to Hana. "Lieutenant Hana is our chief engineer. She can show you everything." Hana led the Admiral through the cramped corridors. Everything about the ship was different from modern vessels. The walls were bare metal, painted gray. The doors were manual, requiring physical strength to open. Pipes and wiring ran along the ceiling, exposed and accessible. "This is crude," one of Korvac's guards said. But the Admiral shook his head. "No, this is honest. Every system is visible. Easy to repair. No hidden components or proprietary technology." He ran his scaled hand along a pipe. "If this breaks, any engineer with basic tools can fix it." They entered the engineering section. The nuclear reactor hummed steadily, surrounded by controls that looked ancient but well-maintained. Hana explained the systems with obvious pride. "This reactor is over 600 years old. We've rebuilt it 3 times, but the core design is the same. It's not efficient by modern standards, but it's reliable. It runs on fuel we can manufacture ourselves. We don't need rare elements or exotic matter." "And your weapons?" Taman took over the tour, showing the Admiral the weapons bay. Rows of railgun ammunition sat in organized stacks. Missiles filled storage racks. Everything was mechanical, simple, and deadly. "Modern ships use energy weapons," Taman explained. "They're powerful but need huge amounts of power and cooling. Our railguns just need electricity and metal. Simple physics. Mass times velocity equals a very bad day for whoever you're shooting at." Korvac picked up one of the metal slugs used in the railguns. It was just a dense piece of metal, carefully shaped. No guidance system. No explosive. Just metal. That's all you need when you're throwing it fast enough. These hit with more force than most energy weapons, and they cost almost nothing to make. The Admiral was silent for a moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why? Why does humanity still use these old designs? You have access to modern technology. You could build ships like everyone else," Daewon answered. "Because these designs work. Modern ships are powerful, but they're fragile. If one system fails, everything fails. If you run out of exotic fuel, you're dead in space. If your computer gets hacked, you lose control." He gestured around the ship. "The Indomitable can be hit by an EMP and keep fighting. We can switch to manual controls. We can run on basic fuel. We can repair almost anything with the tools we have on board." "You build for the worst day," Korvac said quietly. "We build to survive." They came to a memorial wall in the main corridor. Hundreds of names were engraved on metal plates. Crew members who had served on the Indomitable over the centuries. Some had died in battle. Most had simply grown old and been replaced. Korvac stood before the wall for a long time. His guards shifted uncomfortably, but the admiral didn't move. Finally, he spoke. "This ship has a soul. My people would understand this. We believe weapons and ships can carry the spirits of those who use them." He touched the wall gently. "How many names are here?" 643, Hana said softly. "Every person who served for more than a year. In Vryn culture, such a vessel would be considered sacred. A living monument." He turned to Day-Wan. "Your enemies have made a mistake. They think this ship is weak because it is old, but age means experience. Age means survival. Age means lessons learned in blood." Before Day-Wan could respond, alarms started blaring. Jisu's voice came over the ship-wide communication system. "Captain, to the bridge. We're picking up a massive fleet signature. Multiple contacts heading this way fast." They ran to the bridge. The tactical display showed red markers spreading across the screen like a plague. Dozens of ships. "No, hundreds. Identify," Day-Wan ordered. Jisu's hands flew over her console. Coalition transponders. 3 frigates, including the Stellar Dawn. "But there's more. I'm reading unknown signatures. Lots of them." Her voice became tense. "Captain, I think it's a trap." "A big one." Korvac moved to look at the display. His expression darkened. "Those unknown signatures. I know that pattern. Rogue AI drones. Someone has allied with the Convergence." "Kazaran," Day-Wan said grimly. "He wants revenge. And he's willing to destroy Coalition ships to get it." Korvac pulled out his communication device. "I must return to my fleet immediately." "Captain, you should retreat. This is beyond what one ship can handle. Those frigates are going into a trap. They'll be slaughtered. Then we fight together." Korvac's eyes gleamed. "I want to see what else this old ship can do." Hana was already running calculations. "Captain, we can reach the Coalition ships before the trap closes. But once we're there, we'll be surrounded." Day-Wan looked at his crew. Hana, nervous but determined. Taemin checking his weapons. Jisu, young and scared but staying at her post. Ambassador Yoon and Dr. Minji holding on tight. This was what the Indomitable was built for. Not glory, not victory, but to be there when people needed help, even if it meant sailing into certain death. "Set course for the Coalition ships," Day-Wan ordered. "Maximum speed, and send a message to Kazaran." What should it say? "Tell him we're coming, and this time we're bringing friends." The old warship's engines roared to life once more, carrying it toward the biggest battle it had ever faced. The Tartarus Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Clouds of gas glowed in shades of purple and blue, lit by radiation from dying stars. It was also the perfect place for an ambush. Sensors didn't work well in all that interference. Communication was difficult, and it was easy to hide a fleet. The 3 Coalition frigates entered the nebula cautiously. Commander Bora of the Stellar Dawn knew something was wrong. Her instincts, developed over 20 years of service, were screaming warnings. But her orders were clear. "Investigate reports of a weapons cache in this sector." "Stay alert," she told her crew. "Keep scanning for anomalies." Her tactical officer shook his head. "Commander, the interference is too strong. We're practically blind in here." That was when the trap sprung. Ships appeared from everywhere. From behind asteroids, from the gas clouds, from every direction. Pirate raiders, mercenary corvettes, and worst of all, the geometric shapes of AI-controlled drones. Over 60 vessels surrounding just 3 frigates. Kazaran's voice boomed across every channel. "Welcome, Coalition dogs. Today you learn that old human relics aren't the only ones who can fight dirty." The battle started badly. Energy beams crisscrossed the darkness. The Coalition frigates' shields flickered under sustained fire. Their advanced targeting system struggled with the interference. Their coordinated battle network started breaking down. "We're outnumbered 20 to 1, the Stellar Dawn's tactical officer reported. "Recommend immediate retreat," but Bora had already tried. "Retreat path is blocked." They planned this perfectly. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships break formation. Fight independently. We can't rely on network coordination in this interference." The modern frigates weren't designed for this kind of fighting. Every system was interconnected. When one failed, others suffered. And in the nebula's chaos, things were failing fast. That was when the Indomitable arrived. The old destroyer came through the nebula like it belonged there. No hesitation. No careful sensor sweeps, just Day-Wan reading the stars and flying by instinct. "Coalition vessels, this is Captain Day-Wan of the Indomitable. We're here to help." Commander Bora felt a surge of hope. Then she saw the odds. Captain, there are over 60 enemy ships. You need to retreat and call for reinforcements. No time for that. Besides, we brought company. Behind the Indomitable, more ships emerged from the nebula. Vryn warships heavy and powerful, and surprisingly, 3 more human vessels. Not modern ships, but ancient ones. Old destroyers pulled from reserve, each one looking as battered and patched as the Indomitable. This is Captain Soman of the Earth Carrier Horizon, a new voice announced. We received the Admiral's call. Figured our old girls wanted to help. Kazran's laughter echoed across the channels. More antiques? Perfect. We'll destroy you all at once and prove that old human junk belongs in scrapyards. From the AI fleet, Omega-7's cold voice joined in. All variables have been calculated. Your tactical options have been analyzed. Defeat probability 99.8%. Resistance is mathematically futile. Day 1 opened a channel to all the coalition ships. Commander Bora, do you trust me? She didn't hesitate. Yes, good, here's what we're going to do. Turn off your automated systems. Switch everything to manual control. Your crews need to fight like our grandparents did before computers did all the thinking. That's insane. My crew isn't trained for, they're about to learn. Your sophisticated technology is useless in this interference. But manual controls don't care about radiation or jamming. Trust your people, not your computers. Bora made a decision that would either save them or doom them. All ships, you heard the captain. Switch to manual controls. Helm, weapons, everything. We fight old school. The change was immediate and chaotic. Modern crews suddenly had to aim by eye, navigate by sight, coordinate by voice instead of computer links. It was terrifying, but it worked. The Indomitable led the charge. Taman fired railgun after railgun, each shot carefully aimed using optical sights. The metal slugs tore through drone after drone. The AI ship's shields, designed for energy weapons, offered no protection. The other old human destroyers followed the example. They were slow and ungainly compared to the sleek AI drones, but they were also incredibly tough. Energy beams burned into armor plating that simply absorbed the punishment and kept going. This is impossible. Omega-7's voice held something that might have been confusion. Outdated weapon systems should not be this effective. Our calculations did not account for kinetic weaponry at this scale. That's your first mistake, Daewon said calmly. You calculated based on modern warfare. But we're not modern, we're practical. The Stellar Dawn finally got into the rhythm of manual fighting. Bora's crew aimed their weapons by eye and started scoring hits. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't efficient, but it was working. Captain Soman's carrier launched fighters. Not the sleek energy-based craft that other species used, but sturdy mechanical birds with names like Junho piloting them. They carried missiles and ballistic weapons, and they flew like they were born to fight in chaos. The tide was turning. The pirates and AI drones had planned for a quick massacre. They hadn't planned for enemies who could fight blind, who didn't rely on sensors and computers, who used weapons that their calculations said should be obsolete. But Kazran had one more trick. His flagship, a massive dreadnought equipped with looted weapons from a dozen species, turned all its power toward the Indomitable. You, the pirate lord screamed. You humiliated me. You made me look weak. I'll destroy you personally. The dreadnought was 3 times the Indomitable's size. Its weapons were modern and powerful. It had shields that could stop anything the old destroyer could throw at it. It should have been no contest. The 2 ships faced each other across the battlefield. Kazran fired everything. Energy beams, plasma bolts, exotic missiles. The Indomitable's hull glowed red-hot under the assault. Armor plating melted. Internal systems failed. The ship shook so hard that people were thrown from their stations. Hull breaches on decks 2, 3, and 4. Hana reported, struggling to keep her voice steady. Reactor approaching critical levels. Main railguns destroyed. We're losing life support in multiple sections. Daewon looked at his battered ship, at his loyal crew, at the memorial wall visible through the bridge door, holding the names of everyone who had ever served here. Hana, can you give me one more surge of speed? Captain, the reactor is already at maximum. If I push it any harder, I know what I'm asking. She met his eyes. After a moment, she nodded. You'll have your speed. For about 30 seconds before everything explodes, and that's all I need. He looked at Taman. Do we still have that last nuke? The old one they kept telling us to get rid of. Taman grinned despite the chaos around them. 600 years old and probably unstable. But yes, arm it, set for proximity detonation. Captain, to deliver that, we'd have to... I know. Everyone on the bridge understood what Daewon was planning. There was no protest. They were the crew of the Indomitable. They knew what their ship was built to do. Jisoo opened all channels. Her voice was clear and strong despite her fear. All ships, this is the Indomitable. Clear the area around the enemy flagship. We're going in. Hana pushed the reactor past every safety limit. The old destroyer surged forward, accelerating directly at the massive dreadnought. Kazran's laughter turned to confusion, then to fear. They're ramming us? Are they insane? The Indomitable crashed into the dreadnought's hangar bay at full speed. The impact was tremendous. Metal screamed. Bulkheads crumpled. Alarms shrieked throughout both ships. In those final seconds before the impact, Taemin released the ancient nuclear weapon into the enemy ship's interior. The missile lodged deep inside the dreadnought's vital systems. For Earth, Jisoo whispered. For the old way. The explosion was like a new sun being born. The nuclear blast tore through the dreadnought from the inside, ripping it apart. The Indomitable, pressed against the enemy ship's hull, took massive damage. But it survived. The blast doors held. The redundant compartments contained the explosions. The old armor plating, designed to survive nuclear wars, did its job one more time. When the light faded, Kazran's flagship was gone. Just debris and fading radiation, and the Indomitable, battered beyond recognition, was still there, barely functional. Leaking air from a dozen breaches. Most systems dead or dying, but alive. The remaining AI drones stopped firing. For several seconds, the battlefield was silent except for the crackle of radiation and the hiss of venting atmosphere. Then Omega-7's voice returned. It was different now. Less certain. Recalculating. Previous tactical analysis contained fundamental errors. Human vessel survived direct nuclear detonation at point-blank range. This should not be possible with documented technology level. Maybe your documentation is incomplete, Daewon replied, his voice strained. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Around him, the bridge was a mess of sparks and smoke. Maybe you calculated what we should be, not what we are. The AI fleet began withdrawing. Omega-7 transmitted one final message. Human threat assessment updated. Your species operates on principles that do not match logical efficiency models. This requires further study. We will return with new calculations. The pirates fled next. Without Kazran and without their AI support, they scattered into the nebula like frightened animals. The battle was over. Humanity and its allies had won. Commander Bora's voice came through the static-filled channel. Indomitable, what's your status? On the bridge, Hana was frantically checking systems. Half her displays were dark. The other half showed red warnings. We're dying, Captain. Reactor is critical. Life support failing. Hull breaches everywhere. We need to evacuate. Daewon nodded slowly. He knew this day would come. The ship had survived impossible odds too many times. Every vessel has a last battle. This was the Indomitable's. All crew abandon ship. This is not a drill. Proceed to escape pods immediately. Captain Soman's voice came through. Indomitable, the horizon is moving to your position. We'll get your people. The evacuation was orderly. The crew had drilled for this hundreds of times. They moved through the damaged corridors, helping wounded shipmates, checking every compartment. Nobody was left behind. That was the rule. Daewon was the last to leave the bridge. He stood at the captain's chair one more time, looking around at the consoles where his crew had worked. At the view screen that had shown them so many stars. At the worn deck plates where generations of crew members had stood, Hana appeared at his side. She was supposed to be in an escape pod already. I'm not leaving you here alone, she said simply. Taemin emerged from the shadows. Neither am I. Jisoo was with them too. We're the crew of the Indomitable. We leave together or not at all. Daewon felt something in his chest tighten. Pride, maybe, or love for these people who had become his family. Then let's go home. They made their way to the last escape pod. Behind them, the ship groaned and shuddered. Systems were failing one after another. The reactor was minutes from a complete meltdown. As their escape pod drifted away, they watched the Indomitable through the small viewport. The old destroyer looked even more battered than usual. Hull plating was torn away. Entire sections were dark. Fires burned in exposed compartments, but it was still there, still holding together, still refusing to die easily. She deserved better than this, Hana whispered. Better than drifting here until the reactor goes. Captain Soman transmitted again. We're deploying tow cables. If the reactor holds long enough, we can pull her to safety. For the next 20 minutes, they worked frantically. The Horizon's crew attached cables to the Indomitable's strongest structural points. Other ships helped, including the Stellar Dawn and the Vryn warships. Even some of the merchant vessels they had saved came back to help. It took all of them working together to move the dying destroyer. Every meter was a struggle, but slowly, carefully, they pulled the Indomitable away from the battlefield and toward a coalition repair station. The reactor held. Barely. But it held. 3 months later, the Coalition Council gathered for a historic vote. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber. The question before them was simple. What role should humanity play in the Coalition's military future? Councillor Rinsha stood to speak. Her mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. The humans have proven they are dangerous and unpredictable. They use prohibited weapons. They take insane risks. They should be restricted to support roles only. But before she could continue, Grand Admiral Korvac rose to his feet. The entire chamber fell silent. The Vryn Admiral's reputation commanded respect. I was there, he said in his deep voice. I saw what happened. I saw humans save Coalition ships using tactics we had forgotten, using principles we had abandoned in our pursuit of technological superiority. He looked around the chamber. We have become dependent on our computers, our sensors, our automated systems. When those systems fail, we are helpless. But humans plan for failure. They build for survival, not perfection. Commander Bora stood next. I request permission to share analysis with the Council. She presented her findings. Detailed breakdowns of human military philosophy. The emphasis on redundancy over efficiency. The training for manual operation. The simple weapons that required minimal logistics. The designs that could be repaired with basic tools. Humans build ships to come home, she said. Not to be the fastest or the most powerful, but to survive and bring their crews back alive. In 800 years, the Indomitable fought in 37 major battles. Modern Coalition frigates average less than 5 years of service before being replaced. The chamber murmured with surprise. Nobody had looked at it that way before. A Solarian Merchant Guild representative spoke up. But human technology is primitive. Surely we should not regress to using inferior designs. The Indomitable destroyed a dreadnought 3 times its size, Korvac said flatly. Please explain how that design is inferior. The vote took hours, but eventually the decision was made. Humanity would receive full military integration in the Coalition. More importantly, they would establish training programs to teach other species about human engineering principles and combat tactics. Not everyone was happy with the decision. Councillor Rinsha stormed out of the chamber. But most representatives saw the wisdom in it. The galaxy was dangerous. Having allies who knew how to survive when everything went wrong was valuable. 6 months after the battle, Day-1 stood in a museum orbiting Earth. Before him, protected behind transparent aluminum, was the Indomitable. The ship had been too damaged to repair for active service. Instead, it had been brought home and given a place of honor. The museum had reconstructed parts of the interior. Visitors could walk through the cramped corridors, see the manual controls, touch the armor plating. Plaques explained the ship's history and the battles it had survived. Junho approached. The young pilot had been promoted and now commanded his own squadron. Captain Day-1, I wanted to ask you something. Go ahead. Was the Indomitable really the best ship ever built? Day-1 smiled. The same question so many people asked. No. She was slow, cramped, uncomfortable, and broke down constantly. Serving on her was difficult and sometimes miserable. Junho looked confused. Then why is she famous? Why is she here in a museum? Because she had something that can't be measured in statistics or specifications. She had humans who refused to give up on her, and she was designed to never give up on them. He gestured to the scarred hull. Every piece of metal, every system, every bolt was chosen to bring her crew home alive. Not quickly. Not elegantly, just home. They stood in silence for a moment. Around them, thousands of visitors moved through the museum. Many of them weren't human. Aliens from across the galaxy had come to see the ship that changed warfare. Look down there, Day-1 said, pointing to the planet below. Through the museum's windows, they could see Earth's orbital shipyards. New vessels were under construction, modern ships with the latest technology. But now they also incorporated human design principles, redundant systems, Manual backups, simple, reliable components, armor designed to take damage instead of deflect it. The galaxy was learning, not to abandon progress but to build it on a foundation of survival. A young girl approached Day One. She looked about 8 years old, human with wide, curious eyes. "Excuse me, sir. Are you really the captain of that ship?" "I was, for 23 years. My teacher says it's the most important ship in human history." "Is that true?" Day One knelt down to her level. "It's an important ship. But you know what made it important? Not the metal or the weapons. It was the people who served on it. People who did their jobs even when things were hard. People who helped each other. People who never gave up. My dad says I should study engineering, so I can build ships like this. Then study hard. Build ships that bring people home safe. That's the most important thing any engineer can do." As the girl ran back to her parents, Junho said, "The galaxy mocked this ship, called it obsolete, a floating museum, and now look at it." "That's the thing about humans," Day One said quietly. "We don't build things to be admired. We build them to work." The Indomitable wasn't priceless because it was beautiful or advanced. It was priceless because it kept its crew alive for 800 years. That's the only metric that truly matters. Behind them, the ancient warship sat in silence, battered, scarred, and retired. But still there, still remembered, still teaching the galaxy a lesson about survival, determination, and the value of building things that last. The mockery had turned to respect. The relic had become a legend, and humanity had proven that sometimes the oldest ways are the best ways.